We're going to be working with 4 values plus white. This is a sketch that I have made. It's a 5 by 7 sketch. And over to the side you can see that I'm going to put value number 2, which is a light middle value. And then I'm going to go with a middle value, which would be just slightly darker than that particular value that you see. I'm using neutral tint in order for me to get a good gray than a blue gray or whatever, lack of color. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is put my real dark value next to that so that I've got the black. And above that will be white, so similar to white. So I said 5 values, there's 4 values that I'm going to be doing in this sketch instead of 5. Although you can have 5, but the less values you have, the simpler the painting will read. I'm going to tear off a little tape there so I can make room for my white. Now after I've gotten the drawing of the pencil, I'm going to use a kind of a rigger brush with a dark value, and I'm going to sketch the outline of the subject matter. Now keep in mind when you do this sketch, you don't want to make it like it was a coloring book, because that has solid lines all the way around. You want to skip here and there. It's similar to what we did with pen and ink, with a matchstick and ink, except we're doing it with a brush at this point in time. And it's just to see where the bigger shapes are. And it's nothing really new, because every artist throughout the centuries have also sketched with their brush before they do any painting. Some will use yellow ochre because that's a neutral color that can be covered. And so the next thing is supposed to be reading the next value. This would be the light middle value that's right in there. It's next to white. So you've got to kind of gauge your value according to the white paper that you see. Keeping in mind that watercolor does dry lighter than when it is on the paper. So if you make it too light, then you'll have to do it again. If it looks too dark, it's probably the right value when you put this down. And I'm using a mop brush, so I got a lot of water in it, and I've got a distant house. I don't think it's a house, it's sort of like a cancel. I made a roof on it, and I decided to take that roof off and take that off so that it's not a roof, it's a pointed thing, so it looks similar to that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the rest of the tree value here over the boat. See, all of these are linked together. They're not separate, and this middle value will link your shapes together, which is the way you should be painting it. This is why, excuse me, this is why you do a value sketch. So you can see how the linkage will be. And I notice most of people in my class were inventing the values as they were painting from the photograph. And it's very hard to do that because some colors look darker than they really are when they're looking at a value. Like red is actually a middle value, and you would think that would be a darker value because red is so bright, confusing bright with the value of a color. So what I'm doing now is designing the water that is a little bit different than what in the photograph, and leaving some white shapes there and getting it all pretty well blocked in, as you can see. Now the next thing that I want to do is to, well, this didn't go off either. The next thing is I want to do is the darker value. That's the middle value between the middle light and the dark value. So we'll switch my paper over so I can see the subject matter just a little bit better, and then starting to look at some of the values that are down below. And also this roof should be a darker value, and then that will make the side of the building looking lighter, because the roof will be a little bit darker than that. And I'm using a flat brush because I don't want to draw with it. I want to make sure I get some really dark shapes in here. That's the middle value shapes. And there's some signage that go on the thing and windows that are there, so I'm putting that in only as strokes, not really windows, but basically what you would see it if you looked at it from a distance. Now there's a tree on the edge over here, and I'm going to leave some light on top. The other tree has no light on top, but this tree will. So the light is hitting that tree, and then going in and blocking in for this one boat. Now, if you notice the painting, the picture has many boats in it. And I decided to redesign this so that we would only look at what you see in my sketch here. And so you can do some editing, and that's what I've done with this. And blocking it in, there's a sidewalk going across and a landing wall that this boat is against it, and then the reflection of that building inside of the water. And so this is what I'm doing, is just putting that in, not trying to duplicate exactly what you see above, but just sort of indication of what it is. And there's two people walking up to the pavilion, and also I've got people closer to the pavilion that's only kind of light darks and a few dark marks underneath indicating legs. You can think of this as shorthand painting, and that is that you don't define everything that's in there. You leave some things out. And it's very difficult what to leave out and what to put in. That's always a big problem. That's why we do value sketches. So we can use this as a roadmap when we start the large painting. Now I'm going to dry that. You have to dry it between the two. I'm sorry my titles did come through. I don't know exactly what I did wrong in the computer. And so the next thing to do is the darkest value. Now this might be a little too dark, and of course I wouldn't know that at the time that I'm painting it, but that's the value of doing a value sketch, because when you do the painting, you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to make it that dark when I do the painting. And so these are shadows that are coming across on top of the roof. And they're just a little bit, they could be just a little lighter. But I'm going to keep it this way and keep working on this. Now, if you recall, I drew it already with some dark edges. And so I don't really have to do that again. I can just put in some indication, like indicate, don't duplicate idea. So what I'm doing is shorthand painting, like indication of windows and so forth, that you might interpret a stroke to be a window. And doing it this way, instead of doing it in pencil, we're doing it in paint. And that's exactly how you would paint your particular painting, is in paint. It's always good, possibly, to do it this way than to draw it with a pencil, because the medium is completely different. That's one of the things why I sort of indicate that, doing it on a computer, painting on the computer is not the same as as painting it right on the paper. Okay, you can see how the darks have intermingled throughout the painting. And now I'm going to put in some darks up here that I can see where I got some shadow underneath this tree. And have some leaves going in front of that white area right there. I think that will look nice. And you notice the building in the way in the back is very, very light because I wanted atmosphere back there instead of that being as dark as it should be. And so when you have a picture, you've got all the buildings the same, but some are way in the back, try lighten them all up with a value before you paint them dark, because then you're going to have more of an atmosphere to your painting. Now I decided that these two figures should be kind of a silhouette figures instead of a light coming on them. And so they show up against the white, and then the other figures are over there by the boat that you can hardly see what they are. Putting a few little calligraphy marks on the bottom here. I don't know if that's what's necessary because it's right in the corner. Now that's the picture that I'm going by, and you can see there's a lot of confusion in it. And this is the picture that I've just painted. I think it's a little bit confusing also, and so what I would do when I do the painting, I will simplify it even more. Okay, now. Space, okay.